today, the reason that I'm giving this webinar is because I am celebrating being 14 years sober and clean from other substances as well. Hi, Laura. Um, and um, and so I thought it would be really fun to make another video. Because when I was exactly 5,000 days, which was 113 days ago, yes, I still count the days, I made a video answering lots of people's questions that I think a lot of people liked and reference within the group. So I asked lots of you, hey Janet, lovely to see you as well online. So I thought it would be great to ask you guys what you would like to know about sobriety, changing your drinking, what your challenges are, whether they're directly related to drink or not at all. And some really fantastic things popped up that people wanted to know about. They were whether I've ever considered moderating and the whole topic of moderation versus complete sobriety. We had handling triggers, trigger situations, social situations, times at home when you regularly drank, handling, hi Diane, handling your inner critic, that voice, oh my God, I think all of us have that voice in our heads that pumps out propaganda and lies from time to time and tells us that drinking's a good idea or that it's really fun or that we're rubbish, all that sort of stuff. So I'll definitely be covering that. And dealing with cravings, regular cravings, and random cravings. And one lady, she described them as the wine witch. So I will absolutely be covering how to deal with the wine witch and your cravings. And then the last question I was asked was, how long did it take me to recover physically and mentally for from drinking? So I will be answering all of those, and I've also put together a few other things that I think will be really helpful for you. So now that we've been going for a few minutes, I'm going to start because there's quite a few people online. It's really awesome to see you. So who the hell am I? My name's Harriet Whaley Cohen, and as well as being exactly 14 years, which is 5,113 days sober today, I'm a mother. I've got two wonderful boys, aged 7 and 10. I'm a certified well-being coach. I make people fabulous into the most healthiest, happiest, most confident version of themselves professionally. That's what I do, and I do that through talks and workshops and also through one-on-one work. I change the way that people think, act and feel in their relationship with themselves and their bodies massively for the better. So that includes working very much on how we feel about ourselves and practical ways to change that, getting rid of those destructive habits and becoming really happy and balanced. What is the role of sobriety within my life? Well, hi Jules, nice to see you waving back. It's really great to see your comments popping up. So the role of sobriety in my life, I got sober in 2002 when I had just turned 26. And the fact is that for the previous, when did drinking ever work for me? It didn't ever work for me. Drink and drugs never really worked for me, but they did seem to work. They seemed to enable me to do things and make life possible. Initially at the start, when I started drinking and taking other substances, they made me feel more confident. They made me feel like I could socialise, like I could flirt, like I could do stuff, and just the most important thing that those things did was they quietened down that voice inside that told me I wasn't good enough and that I couldn't do it and all that washing machine head stuff. And it was like they turned the volume down and flicked the lights on full beam. And that felt pretty awesome. But the problem was that I was never able to just have one. I always had as many as was available. I usually blacked out. If I was drinking heavily, I almost always vomited, made a right, state of myself, got involved in all sorts of disastrous situations, and it was never really fun. Even though I told myself it was fun, it was never really fun, and it all came to, I'd say that I bounced along in rock bottom for about 4 years before I actually finally was sick and tired of being sick and tired enough to make changes permanently. and I started my sobriety journey on the 1st of October 2002, and it's been one heck of a journey. So that's a little bit about my story and how I came to be sober. I just really had enough of how I felt inside. I had an emotional and spiritual rock bottom. Some people it's physical or financial, or their partner threatens to leave them. For me, I was just fed up of hating myself so much, which is what happened. The more I treated myself destructively, the more I hated myself, and the more that the thing I turned to suppress the voices in my head that said I wasn't good enough, the more it didn't work. It was like it was all dead. So I had to change things. And my role within Club Soda, I've been a member of the expert panel since it launched, and it's been a wonderful thing to be part of. And high five to Laura for doing it. I've designed workshops, and various people have come who are on the message boards, and it's always been great to be involved. So that's a bit about who I am and my journey and how I come to be involved with Club Soda. So I'm going to dive in right away with answering your questions. So the first one was, have I ever thought about moderating? To moderate or not to moderate? That is the question. Do you know what? Since I made that final decision that I was going to stop and that I had to stop, I have not ever thought I could moderate. I spent a number of years before that, before 2002. Sorry, a phone call just came through. Oh, that was scary. So I spent a number of years desperately trying to moderate and failing and beating myself up even more. Hi, Susie. Hi, Amanda. Hi, Beth. And really, it was just so distressing thinking, okay, maybe the magic formula is that if I only drink on a Saturday and I have these people around me and I make sure I've eaten first or this and that, it won't be such a disaster and I won't feel so rubbish the next day. It never worked. All that juggling and trying to manage it, it just never worked. The thing about the question of whether to moderate or not to moderate, the main thing that I would like you guys to take away from this is that you need to be brutally honest with yourself. It's not for anyone else to decide whether you can or whether you can't moderate, but you need to be brutally honest with yourself about your drinking pattern, whether you were able to have a couple of glasses or whether you always got hideously drunk, no matter what your intentions were. And it's not always so much about the quantity that you drank, it's about how that made you feel. So if you felt like you thought the drink was going to give you this one thing, but in the end you ended up feeling horrendous and the hangovers were awful and it's destroying so many different areas of your life, then that's the time to be brutally honest with yourself. And a big question here is it costing you more than money? Yeah, but I guess that's for each of you to go on your own journey to figure out whether moderating is something that you can do, and indeed whether it's something that you want to do. Yeah, because if you see drinking as a way of running away, rather than something that's fun and that adds to your life, it's possible that there are other solutions than drink. If drink is a fix for you rather than a fun thing, I would say look for other fixing solutions. Yeah. Handling triggers. Okie dokie, handling triggers. One person mentioned that cooking is always a trigger for them. Somebody else mentioned that work situations, social situations, those kind of things are times when you feel that it's a trigger. You've always drunk in those situations. Well, what I think is really important to do is to ask yourself, like, what is the drink giving you in these situations? And is there something else that can give you that? What are you really there for? Like when it's a social situation, are you really there because you want to run away from your life? Or are you really there because you want to socialize and you want to hang out with people and have great conversations and feel connected and feel like you're part of something and have a fun time? Because the main reasons why you're drinking, that you tell yourself that you're drinking, are probably not the main reasons why you want to go and join in with social situations. And let's say it's a work client lunch, where you have clients or people you work with and you've always drunk, and so have the other people. Um, it's entirely possible that the main purpose of that work thing, hi Jill, lovely to see you. It's entirely possible that the main purpose of that work lunch is not for everyone to drink. It's to discuss a project, it's to discuss your relationship, it's to discuss the future direction of business projects. Whatever it is, I can guarantee you that the main purpose was not drinking. So it's about getting really clear about what your purpose is, what your intention is, and looking at how to fulfill that without a drink. I think it's very important when you're going into social situations, work social situations, that kind of thing. Hi, Serena, lovely to see you. To be prepared. And there's a number of things that I think it's good to be prepared for. It's good to be prepared for what you're actually going to drink. So have a think, like when you get there, do you want to drink lemonade? Are you going to ask for a virgin cocktail? Are you going to drink water? Decide before you get there what your drink choices are going to be, so that when somebody asks you, what are you drinking, you know immediately to say, could I have a lime and soda? Or whatever it is that you've decided on. So there's no hesitation in your mind. Go fully consciously into that moment that's going to arrive of what are you drinking, whether it's a waiter or a friend at the bar. You know what the answer is ahead of time. Also be prepared for what you might say when people ask you why you're not drinking. Is it that you're going to say, I'm just on a bit of a health kick at the moment, and I've decided that I'm not drinking right now? Or are you going to say that you're driving? Are you going to say that drink was making you unhappy and you've decided to see how it is not drinking for a bit? Whatever it is, have an answer or two prepared in advance, so that you don't get caught out, you don't feel like you're on the back foot. And here's something that I've found works really well, is that when people ask me why I'm not drinking, I will say something like, I really like being sober, or drink doesn't work for me, I don't like being out of control. And then I change the subject immediately, and ask them a question about themselves. Like, so, how have you been since we last met? Or what's going on with your partner? Or some common thread that it wouldn't seem odd for me to ask them about. But I think the bigger deal that you make it, when people ask you why you're not drinking, and the more uncomfortable you seem, the more it's like a kind of magnet for them to dig further and further, and it can get more and more uncomfortable. So have an answer and then take the focus off yourself as quickly as possible. That's a really good tip there. If you think that there are going to be people who are desperately going to persuade you to drink, maybe they're not great people to hang out with. I can't say it more bluntly than that. The people who really care about you and want you to be the happiest version of yourself will want you to stick to your drinking goals. They will not try to force you to do something that you're saying outright is not what you want. The people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter, they don't mind, which I'm sure you've heard many times before. It's a simple saying, but it's true. And for work lunches, dinner parties, celebrations of close family and friends, if you've recently changed your drinking, it's a very good idea to communicate in advance and let them know. Let them know that you're not drinking right now, or that you're only having one glass, or whatever it is that it's going to be for you, so that they know what's going on and it's not a surprise. I know for birthdays and celebrations, one of the things that's come up in the Club Soda workshops that I've facilitated and led has been saying to people, you know what, I love it when I can remember everything the next day and I can be fully present and have great conversations. I enjoy that far more. And no one is going to argue with you saying that. And if they do, maybe they don't have your best interests at heart, really. So the other thing that I always do when I'm in a drinking situation is have an escape plan. So if it's a work function, you can let people know, yeah, I'm coming for a couple of soft drinks, but then I'm going to yoga, or then I've got a delivery at home, or whatever it is. Just have a reason, have a point in the evening in mind when you're going to give yourself permission to leave. I generally find that if I'm at parties which are booze centric, that it's a really good idea to get there early, and then by the time everyone's on about their third or fourth drink, or maybe fifth, that's when they're not making sense anymore, the conversation's not fun, you can't connect with people, and so that's when I'd want to leave. But if I've got there early, the hosts don't mind. They don't even notice, to be honest. Everyone's a bit tipsy. No one really cares if you slip out. You don't need to make a big deal out of leaving either. I find that the more I do this big, oh, I'm not going to drink and you're all drinking and therefore I've got to leave, that's not a great way to leave. It's better to just be really calm and quiet about it and slip out without making a scene at all. So I hope that's been helpful with social situations, work, drinking situations, triggers of that sort. One of the things that comes up a lot, and I'm going to have some more water. Most of you that have been in the group a while know that I was in a nasty car accident 6 months ago, and I'm on some medication to sort out the nerve pain and nerve issues in my head and my neck. And the side effect is that it gives me a really dry mouth. So I'm going to keep on drinking water throughout, and apologies for the interruptions there. So handling the inner critic. This is a huge deal. I mean, I had the most horrific inner critic when I was growing up that told me I was rubbish and constantly looked for all the reasons to validate these negative feelings I had about myself. And I know that there are lots of different reasons that I can go into with my therapist or very close friends about why I had that inner critic. But the fact is, I did have it. And I know that lots of you, from the sharing I see going on in the group, this is something that you struggle with as well. And the fact is, I drank to get away from that. I drank to get away from what it was like living in my head sober, right? So handling the inner critic has been as much about finding a way to live where I don't need to suppress my thoughts and feelings as it has been about anything else. Because I found that when I stopped drinking, I found out all the reasons why I was drinking in the first place, and what was going on in my head was a massive part of that. So yeah, the long-term answer, the long game, and it's certainly something that you can put into practice right away, is that by living a life where I'm true to myself the whole time, and I honour myself in every single area of my life through what I eat, what I wear, the kind of people I hang out with, the relationships I have, the romantic relationships I have, my career, everything. I live a life that's true to myself. And in a spiritual sense, I'd say I have my own individual, unique kinds of spiritual pathway and morality, for want of a better word. I have a set of codes and principles that are true to me. And when I live a life that honours them completely, I don't have an inner critic in my head. When I'm totally honest about things, when I'm there for my children, when I show up for people, when I'm there for my family, when I do as good a job as I can professionally, I feel really awesome about how I'm operating in the world. And I don't need to suppress thoughts and feelings I have about myself. So that's the long game, is about honouring yourself and living a life that's completely in alignment with yourself and where you feel that you're bringing good things to the world. But then there's the shorter term game, right? And tools and strategies that you can put in place to handle your thoughts. I think the first thing is that awareness of the fact that these are just thoughts and that you don't have to turn them into beliefs and you don't have to buy into them is absolutely key. You don't have to believe everything that you think. You can allow thoughts to come and go and just float past without latching onto them and turning them into destructive beliefs about yourself. Mindfulness is a fantastic tool for this, and I know Club Soda runs courses. I'm a big fan of that, and I'm a big fan as well of the Headspace app, which I use, and they have a brilliant kids section as well. If any of you watching have kids that struggle with that inner critic or with watching their thoughts as well. So being aware that they're just thoughts and that you don't have to buy into them, really great thing to do. So we talked about mindfulness for managing your inner critic, and being aware of your thoughts. Hi Sally, and Laura's saying I'm back. Everyone's saying I'm back. Yay, I'm back. Hooray. Hi everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, so mindfulness for inner critic, and living a life that's true to yourself. Hi Charlotte, so lovely to see you. 2 tips that I think are invaluable, well, more strategies, techniques than tips here, for managing your inner critic. The first thing is to get a perspective on yourself that is balanced. And one really practical way you can do that is at the end of every day, write down on pieces of paper 3 things that have been positive that have happened that day that you've played a really important role in making happen. So, for example, for me today, I could write down that I'm prepared for this webinar. I looked at your questions, I thought about the answers that I wanted to give, and I did a pretty decent job. And that's a positive thing that happened that I made happen. So come up with 3 things like that each day, and maybe you have a spare pasta jar, or if you're really a bit of a health nut like me, you probably put quinoa in it instead of pasta. But get one of those glass jars and put the positives in each day, and over a year you'll have over 1,000 positive things that have happened that you've made happen. And as you start getting into the practice of doing this every single day, you'll start to find yourself as you go through your day and good things happen going, oh wow, I can put that in my jar tonight, and you get this visual representation of all these positives racking up. So that's good to give yourself a positive perspective, but I like to balance that. I'm a bit of a maths geek, with one delta, and the mathematical symbol for delta is a triangle. So 3 positive things, and then 1 thing you would like to change, 1 delta for the next day. So for example, I do this with my older son who's 10 most evenings, and for ages, great, I'm glad you love that idea, Amanda. For ages he would tell me positive things that happened at school and this and that, and his delta was, I'm going to try and concentrate the whole way through maths and not have my teacher call me back in terms of attention, and to stop looking out the window or fiddling or whatever. And for days and weeks, that was his delta that he wanted to try and work on. And then one day he came running out of school and was like, Mummy, I did it. I concentrated the whole way through maths. And if you just give yourself that 1 thing each day that you want to work on, that you want to improve on, it's realistic. It helps you to feel you're moving forward. And if you've got 3 positives each day and 1 thing to work on, to improve, to do slightly better, you get a much more balanced perspective rather than just focusing on all the things that you think you didn't do well enough, which will only feed your inner critic. The other thing is an amazing tool that I learned from a leader in the personal development world called Byron Katie, and you can find out all about this at her website, which is thework.com, because she calls it doing the work. And that is when you have a negative belief or interpretation in your head, such as I'm unlovable and I'll never be in a relationship, right? And this could come from the why hasn't he or she texted dilemma, and that's where your head can run to, that like it must be because there's something wrong with me and I'm totally unlovable and I'll never be in a relationship, right? Is that you go through a series of questions where you ask yourself if it's really true, and it probably isn't, and then you ask yourself how believing that is affecting every single area of your life, how you show up, what thoughts, behaviors, emotions go on for you when you choose to believe that thought. And it's all kinds of things that happen. And then you imagine in the next step that there's a thought supermarket, and all thoughts that are available to think are available on the shelf of this thought supermarket, except that thought that you're unlovable and you'll never be in a relationship, for example, has never been created. It's just not available to think and feel. And you imagine what your life would be like if it just wasn't possible to think that thought. And a huge space opens up when you get into that place of possibility and of believing that anything could happen, and behaving and thinking and feeling really differently. So it's a very helpful questioning process, and then right at the end of it you turn around the original belief. So from I'm unlovable and I'll never be in a relationship could be turned around to I am lovable, and one day it is entirely possible that I'll be in a relationship. And you look for factual evidence to back that new statement up. I've explained that very fast and in very brief detail. I would highly recommend going over to thework.com or looking at any of Byron Katie's books on this subject, because it's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant tool, and I use it all the time personally and with clients and in talks. So that's another thing on dealing with your inner critic. Okay, random cravings. Maybe I should have dealt with this when we were talking about how to deal with social situations and other kinds of trigger points. But I feel this is a slightly separate issue. The one of random cravings and regular cravings. So one person mentioned that every single day when they come home at 6 o'clock, it's on them. And I've had a client in the past who experienced this as well, where a particular time in the day was a trigger. I think the first thing to do is to know that just because you have a craving or the thought comes into your mind, oh, I quite fancy a drink, it doesn't mean you have to do it. You can watch that thought in a mindful way and go, oh, that's a craving, or that's a thought that I should drink. Interesting. And you can let it go. The other thing is that it's really important to ask yourself what you really want in that moment, because often it's what that drink represents. If you regularly find that your trigger was coming home from work, maybe it means winding down, maybe it means de-stressing, relaxing, switching off your mind, not having to think about the job that you hate, or whatever it is, but there will be reasons why you're having a drink. And what I would suggest is that when you've figured out what it is that you really want, you then imagine that your best friend or someone you deeply care about was in exactly that situation. They were coming home, they were wanting a drink, they were fed up with their job, they'd had a shitty day, they've had a row with their partner, whatever it is, and they really fancy a drink at that time. And you would probably realise very quickly that that person didn't actually need a drink, they needed someone to talk to, or they were exhausted and they needed to be fed well and put in the bath and then sent to bed with a massive hug, or maybe they needed someone to listen without criticising them in any way. They basically needed love. And do that for yourself. Find out what it is that you really need instead of a drink. Find out what that drink represents. Find out what the answer to that would be, and do that for yourself. I know that's a big one, but actually that's huge, and that's also something you can use around emotional eating, is asking yourself what you're really hungry for, and then what you would do for someone you really adore and love who was going to eat instead of dealing with their feelings or dealing with their tiredness or dealing with their frustration or loneliness, and do that for yourself. What else? Yes, now this is a really cool thing, and this is a list of things that when the either regular or unexpected craving for drink hits you, is that it's really helpful to have a list of things you really enjoy doing that help you relax or help you not to feel lonely or not to feel tired or not to feel hungry or whatever it is. Have a list of those things to hand on your fridge or wherever works for you, on your phone maybe, so that you've got it out and about wherever you go, and you can consult it and say, oh, I could watch a TED Talk, I could get on the phone with a good friend, I could jump onto Netflix, I could read a good book, I could have a bath, whatever it is, but there will be a list of things that appeal to you in that moment. Now, in terms of creating that list, don't create that list when you're feeling awesome, because you'll be in the moment and you'll have had an utterly rubbish day, get home and be like, oh, all I want is a glass of wine. And you'll look at this list that you made when you were feeling amazing and think, why the hell would I want to do those things? That's not going to work. Next time you feel rubbish and the craving is on you, that's the time to make the list and think like, what would really work in the heat of this moment, okay? Because the things that you'll come up with in that state are things that will genuinely work. It's not to say that the other things wouldn't work. It's just that if you make that list, when you're in that frame of mind, it's much more likely to be a list of things that will actually work, right? So that's something for you to play around with in terms of figuring out what to do. Just work out what the drink really represents for you and meet that particular need rather than the surface lie of whatever you think the drink is going to give you. So the last question I was asked, and yes, hi Che, I just answered a whole number of your questions, so you're going to have to go back and replay this. But in the meantime, I'm having some water, and I'm going to answer this last question, which is how long did it take before my body and mind recovered? That is a huge, humongous question. In terms of recovering physically, I think that it took probably 18 months. If I'm brutally... Oh, I had a haircut yesterday too, Shay. Yeah, probably took about 18 months for me to fully recover physically. Although there are some things that may never recover. For example, I have a little bit of damage in parts here from taking drugs that way, and certain parts of the body don't regenerate. But Janet's saying she'd like to know about self-care. Is that right, Janet? Ask me a specific question and I'll make sure to include it. Or maybe that was just a comment of self-care. I'm not sure. But if there's a question attached to it, Janet, please let me know. Where was he? How long did it take my body and mind to recover? So physically, it did take a while, and it wasn't instant at all. But I did notice that my energy was much better, that my skin got better very quickly, and oh, you were commenting on Shay having a haircut. Yes, of course, that's self-care. Awesome. Okay, now I understand. Body recovery. I think the thing was, when I gave up drinking, my diet wasn't all that awesome. I still had a lot of allergies. I had skin problems like eczema. Sometimes I was prone to yeast infections. I hope that's not too much information. And I was also still smoking. And I gave up smoking after about 7 months after I gave up everything else. And at that point, as some of you know from my post in the past, I took up pizza and put on about a stone in the short space of time. Okay, I'm seeing the sugar craving question. I will definitely address that. And I think that's quite common. It's quite common to switch from one fix to another fix. And the question is taking first things first, right? Focusing on the thing that really needs fixing first, which is probably changing drinking. And then seeing what you can work on after that. So like I said, I changed my drinking and cut out the drink and the drugs, and then it took me 7 months to, I didn't even think about diet or caffeine or any of those things. Then I gave up smoking at around 7 months. When I was about 1 year sober, I went to see a nutritionist and radically changed my diet, which got rid of all my allergies, worked on my eczema. I did a huge liver and kidney detox, which was amazing. And over a course of about 3 or 4 months, I lost that stone that the pizza had piled on, and I felt loads better. So I think it did take time for me to recover physically. I'd say that now I'm in great shape physically. My diet is pretty much immaculate, and that really helps. And I drink loads of water. And obviously, if your diet is not fantastic and you're drinking a lot of fizzy drinks and you're smoking and all that sort of stuff, it may take you longer to recover physically. The more goodness that you can put into your body, the better. There is no such thing as an overdose of good nutrition, eating too many green vegetables, and that sort of thing. There are some supplements that are very helpful, especially B vitamins, for people who've had issues around drink, and it may be that a really good multivitamin can help you to get back in shape physically. But loads of water is always a good thing. I'm on and off with caffeine. I'm on at the moment, but I've been off for several years at a time, on and off through my sobriety journey. And I think everything like that is a personal choice, and it's about being deeply honest with yourself about whether it's working for you, whether it's making you more healthy or less healthy. Yeah, and whether it's working for you. Um, so emotional recovery, that's an ongoing process, I'll be brutally honest. And in many ways, so many things improved really quickly. I'm very open that I've worked the 12 steps of AA, and that's helped me phenomenally to understand my patterns, understand what was my responsibility and what wasn't, learn how to change my patterns of behavior so that I'm at peace with myself and how I operate, which is something I touched on earlier. Yay, I know I'm back. Yeah, the storms are an issue. Yeah. So emotionally, it has been a long journey, and the 12 steps did help me to make peace with my past and to find a way of living that works for me, and helps me not to have that chatter in my head that I feel I need to run away from. I've also had help with therapists, different kinds over the years, and most importantly, I have an awesome kick-ass support network of friends, a small closed inner circle where I can share and take my stuff to and get support from, and I think that's hugely important. So emotionally, I think the recovery and stuff can take longer. If you have not been through a lot of really traumatic stuff, it's possible that it might be an easier journey for you. But I think that emotionally, it's a long road of learning to cope differently. You know, drinking was a survival skill for me, and so I had to learn a whole bunch of new survival skills. One of which was being deeply honest and always facing up to my stuff as it came up, and dealing with my past and dealing with all my issues. So, by no means an easy journey, but one that's totally been worth it. Absolutely. There's one thing that I think it's important to say, and that is that if there's a particular situation in your life and you're quite newly sober, if there's a particular situation in your life that was one of the main reasons why you were drinking, a job that you hate, a relationship that's not right, something like that, it may be worth looking at dealing with that as best as you can, or making it a bit more manageable. Because if you just cut back massively or stop drinking and don't deal with all the reasons why you were drinking in the first place, it's going to be super hard for you. So deal with that stuff, make changes where you need to. I've also made a list of other tips that are not connected with what other people asked for. Hey, thanks for the comment about the angel wings. It's become a thing, my angel wings, and they're in most of my social media videos, and I love them too, and I'm glad you do. One of the things is to find things to do now that you're sober that you really love. Find hobbies, activities, stuff that makes your soul sing and feel great about life. You know, changing your drinking and no longer drink being your main source of amusement or happiness. You've got to find other things to put in. It should be fun. It should be more fun, more happy, more entertaining, more. It should not be less in any way, changing your drinking. Make some sort of corner of your home a sanctuary. Maybe it's your bedroom, maybe it's a corner of your kitchen or living room, somewhere that is your beautiful, calm retreat space where you can go to. That works really well for me. I know I have places where I just love to hang out, and it's like my sanctuary away from the world. That's really important for me. Something that I did in the beginning, and that I still do to some extent, I'm going to change hands again, my arm's getting a bit sore, is that I made my new drinking goals, and for me that was total sobriety, and for you it will be whatever it is. I made it my number one priority. It's a bit like flying an aeroplane. They always say that the takeoff and the landing are the most difficult, dangerous parts, but once you're up in the air cruising, it's easy. So for the takeoff, for me, I made not drinking my number one priority. I asked myself the question, will this thing I'm thinking of doing, or these people I'm thinking of hanging out around with, take me further away from or further towards drinking when I don't want to? And if that thing took me much further towards drinking, then for a while, I decided that I didn't want to do it. Now, I didn't have communities like Club Soda or whatever that said it's possible to do anything, but that's what worked for me. And I think sometimes it is really important to have that brutal honesty to know whether something's going to take you further away from or further towards your goals. I know I've forgotten his name. He is one of our Olympic rowers who's won tons of gold medals. James Cracknell, there we go. It's come to me. My brain cells do recover. I have got a memory these days. And he, when he gives talks and inspirational, motivating speeches about what he achieved, he said that when they were preparing for races, when they were preparing for the Olympics and all that kind of thing, they only ever asked themselves one question when they were thinking about whether to go to a barbecue, whether to hang out with friends, whether to do a certain kind of training, whatever it was. And that question was, will it make the boat go faster? And if the answer was no, it will not make the boat go faster, they didn't do it. So maybe there's something in that again, that you can take away around your drinking and what you want to achieve, to take away from that message about priorities and how seriously you want to take this. What else have I written down? I talked about, when I was talking about the emotional stuff, about the value of friendships, and I cannot speak highly enough about this. Friendships, having an inner circle of people that you can turn to, that you can text or connect with whenever you need to ask for support and to share honestly what's going on for you, that's going to be really, really important. The Club Soda group's amazing, and I'm sure that in amongst your circle of family and friends, you have cheerleaders in there as well that only want the best for you and that really want you to succeed. And those are the people to have in your inner circle. Which brings me on to the importance of making your inner circle supportive for you. I sometimes categorize people into either radiators or drains, and radiators are people that lift you up, want you to succeed, come up with constructive solutions. When you share your successes with them, they're excited and happy for you, and you feel energized after you've been around them or had a conversation with them. They lift you up, right? Whereas drains are the opposite. Drains, if you take a success to them, they will find a problem within it. You take a problem to them and they'll tell you their problems are much worse or be completely defeatist about it. They potentially don't want you to succeed. And after you've been around them, you feel exhausted. You don't feel like it's been good at all. So make your social circle full of radiators and not drains, and people who you want you to succeed and make you feel good. And the same goes for social media. It's such a big part of our influencers these days, that making sure that your Instagram, your Facebook feed is full of things that make you feel good about yourself and good about what you're trying to achieve is really important. If your feed is full of people saying, well, hey, who wants to come out and get pissed on Friday? And, oh, I'm so hungover. And, I mean, that's not going to help, is it? So you've got to take a certain level of responsibility for the influences in your life, both social media and friendship, and make sure that what's influencing you is genuinely supportive and constructive for what you want to achieve. I think I'm going to wrap up. Oh, no, I'm not going to wrap up because I didn't talk about sugar. I'm glad I remembered that. So sugar's a really big deal. I gave up sugar a year ago on my 13 years sober. It was a present to myself. And I know a lot of people struggle around sugar and around eating way too many sweet things. Sugar is highly addictive. It will make you put on weight. It has no nutritional value. There's nothing good in it, yet it's everywhere. And it is very easy to reach for. And I guess one of the questions, it's very similar to that, why are you drinking? Why are you really drinking? What is the need you're really trying to meet? And if you're craving, literally craving something sweet, and it's a physical craving, there are lots of sweet things that you can have, like fruit, dried fruit, naked bars, which I'm a big fan of. There are lots of things that you can have that are genuinely sweet but don't have refined sugar. I think it's really normal to have sugar cravings. The fact that I carried on with it for 13 years, even though it was a bit of an issue, just shows you that it's not easy. But there are things that you can do instead. And the bigger question is, where is sweetness missing in your life? And if that's that you're not happy in some ways, or that you're seeking comfort in sugar, then maybe that's something to look at, like what's really going on for you, and use the same process as when I was saying, why are you drinking? What would you do for a friend who really needed that early night or needed someone to sound off to, and do that for yourself. So I hope that's helpful. Some people find that it's helpful to do a detox, some kind of juice cleanse. Some people find that they can cut back. I'm not good at moderation when it comes to sugar. Sugar's like booze for me. Moderation is impossible, whereas abstinence is possible. So I hope that's been helpful for you on sugar. If you want more resources on that or on anything else, please feel free to ping some questions to me, ask them in the thread underneath the video. So what's the overall message I want you to go away with about everything that I've covered tonight for you? It's that honesty, brutal honesty with yourself, will save your neck and help you meet your goals. That's honesty around what drinking really means for you, whether you can moderate, honesty about what the hell's going on with you at any given moment and reaching out and asking for help, honesty about why you're craving, honesty about what you're reaching for as a fix instead, getting really deeply down with things. That is so important. So honesty, honesty, honesty. I can't speak highly enough of that. And living a life where you're true to yourself, which includes being brutally honest with yourself. Living a life that honors you, living a life where you love the person that you are and how you operate in the world and what you bring to the world, that will silence your inner critic more than anything else. And having a support network, people around you that are great, that will make a big difference, massive, massive difference. So honesty, living a life that's true to yourself, which is part of honesty, and having an awesome support network. And just don't be afraid to reach for help. You know, I'm not afraid to admit that I still use a therapist from time to time. I still go to my meetings. I'm active in this group. I talk to my friends about what's going on. Yes, my arm is okay, Laura, just about. I'm going to sign off. It's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me as well and allowing me to pass on my message. Let me know if you want to know more about anything that I've mentioned. If you didn't catch any of the resources that I mentioned, I can put that up too. So that's it from me. Have an amazing Saturday. Enjoy Strictly, those of you that wanted this to be finished in time for Strictly, and I'll see you soon.